for the third out of 12 times New South Wales went to Queensland and won an Origin decider.
Yeah, full credit to the Blues. They did really well, holding Queensland tryless in a decider at Suncorp Stadium. That's no mean feat for sure. So well done to Michael Maguire and the Blues. As is, I'm sure, predictable, Queensland had a whinge after the game. Billy Slater and Daly Cherry Evans in that press conference.
Yeah, 100%. I think it was one of the best rugby league games I've ever watched.
It was a really good game. It was.
I think, it's been soured by the behaviour of not just Queensland team and coach, but also fans just whinging, complaining about how, they didn't get the rub of the green from the refs and all that kind of thing. But, New South Wales also didn't get the rub of the green as well. And it was really funny. We'll get to the whole off the field blue, but really funny that the meme came true because in game 2, I mentioned during the game that meme came out with Daly Cherry Evans complaining to the ref and saying, "Hey mate, we can't win unless you send one off," and that actually happened in the match. He wanted Cam Murray sent off. There were some things where, finally for the first time ever, I thought New South Wales did get the rub of the green from the ref, but there were many things that happened in the game that I just, from the very beginning, I was like, again, Queensland just get this over the top ridiculous. Like Reece Walsh putting his foot out with the touch judge right there on the spot. There was a whole bunch. Every single time that the New South Wales kicked to Zach Lomax's wing, he was shielded off the ball, and he ended up finally getting a penalty for it late in the game. But every single time it happened, they had clearly trained it to make it look like they weren't, but they were clearly doing it. And everyone's whinging around Reece Walsh getting hit off the ball and so on, but they were doing that to Mitchell Moses all the time.
Yeah, well, I actually did a column on our website last week saying, well, it was no wonder that Daly Cherry Evans was screaming at the referee asking for Cameron Murray to be sent off after that melee because game 1 when Queensland had a one-man advantage when Joseph Suoliti was sent off, that was the only time of the series they'd been on top. So it's no wonder Cherry Evans was so vocal in his calls for Cameron Murray to be sent off because when it's been a 13-on-13 series, New South Wales have been clearly the better team. 34-0 at half-time in Game 2, a record for a first half, a record score for a first half in a State of Origin game, and a decider at Suncorp Stadium in Brisbane. Queensland held tryless, New South Wales winning 2-0. So as I say, it's no wonder Cherry Evans he looked quite distressed. He was adamant Cameron Murray should have been sent off. And, as I say, it's no wonder because when it was 13-on-13, New South Wales were clearly the better team over the course of the 3 games.
Game 2, 12-on-12, Queensland actually started to get dominance up that side. Talked about it after Game 2. But Game 3, New South Wales corrected it. It's like they had corrected it. Like, if we go down to 12-on-12 again, boys, we need to fix this because that was the real danger. In Game 2, when there was 12-on-12, if Queensland had that's when they scored all their tries, basically, up that left side, short side play off Harry Grant. And, come Game 3, it just didn't work. There were a few, Ben Hunt. There was, I think Billy Slater made actually terrible decisions in a lot of places. I mean, I know he was trying to fix Game 2, but he seemed to have forgotten about what worked in Game 1 and Game 2. And so even the before kickoff decision to put Ben Hunt back to the bench and Harry Grant to start made no sense.
And look, I mean, maybe we should just jump ahead to this David Fifita omission then while we're on it now. So the word that went around was that David Fifita wasn't picked because he doesn't play well under fatigue. And yet they picked Kafusi on the bench, and he only played 16 minutes. So if they're going to pick someone on the bench who only plays 16 minutes, well, how could they be worried about David Fifita being fatigued? David Fifita could have played those 16 minutes. He wouldn't have got fatigued in 16 minutes. Yeah. And if he had played 16 minutes, they would have been a much better 16 minutes than what Kafusi put together.
And that's like, so, you know, it kind of merges together. They're whinging. Billy Slater's just whinging. He's still whinging. And then, but he's not taking ownership of his mistakes. So it all starts with, like, game one, Selwyn Cobbo being on the bench, which wasn't, like, you know, people thought was a mistake, and then just coincidentally Reece Walsh gets knocked out, so it's a masterstroke. But if Reece Walsh hadn't have got knocked out, what was Selwyn Cobbo going to do? And then it moves to, you know, David Fifita not getting picked. Moves to game two where, you know, he dropped Selwyn Cobbo for no apparent reason. Still didn't pick David Fifita. And then we go to game three, and, he's just picked, like, look, they defended well. Queensland defended well, and they attacked just as well as New South Wales in the first half. But the forwards they picked weren't like anybody's first choice forwards to start. What's the guy's name? Capewell?
Capewell.
Yeah, like he wasn't setting the world on fire or anything like that. And so what Billy Slater has done is made mistakes, and he's not owning them. He's just blaming the referees and New South Wales being mean to Reece Walsh.
You talk about Slater blaming the referee. These are his quotes after the game in the press conference. He says, things just weren't going our way. It didn't feel like we got the bounce of the ball or the rub of the green, and that tells in the end with fatigue, Slater said. Then he said, I'm sure the referee will review his own game. I'm sure his boss will review his game. That's their job. That's their job, to review their own game and their own performance. So they get beaten 2-0. They go 80 minutes without scoring a try at home, with the home crowd haggling the referee all game. And I know they lost the penalty count, but still, they don't score a try in 80 minutes. And he puts it on the referee. Now, that's not good enough.
No.
If you don't score a try for 80 minutes, well, that loss is on you and your inability to attack. That loss is not on the referee if you go 80 minutes of a decider at home without scoring a try.
Unless they don't send off someone for you. You can blame the referee. But that's the thing, right? He's just sat there, blame the referee. It's like it's all everyone else's fault. Nothing Billy Slater did was the reason they lost. It was all the referee. It was all the rub of the green. It was all like the bounce of the ball. It was all everything else, everything external.
Yeah, what does that mean? What does the rub of the green mean? What does the bounce of the ball mean? You know, that's just generic claptrap garbage talk.
I don't have anything to blame, so I'm going to use those cliches.
Yeah, it's just cliches that mean nothing.
Here we are 6 days later, and that means the referees have reviewed their game, and nothing has come out. So now what, Billy? The referees are... So now the issue is the referees don't know how to review their own games. You know, not picking David Fifita was a mistake. Own it. Picking Selwyn Cobbo or not picking Selwyn Cobbo, or picking Selwyn Cobbo and not picking him for no reason was a mistake. Own it. The bench rotation was a mistake. Own it. Like that's
Adam O'Brien owns it after games. He actually says, look, maybe I went wrong here or there. And because he's willing to do that, I'm willing to cut him more slack. I go, yeah, this is a coach who's willing to say, look, maybe I got it wrong this week.
Yeah.
Maybe it wasn't just my players. I think it shows a lot of character for a coach to do that after a game. Billy Slater obviously can't do it, as we know Ricky Stewart can't do it.
Yeah, and it all starts and ends with the coach. I know, like, I've had this conversation a lot of times with people who are like, the coach isn't the person playing the game. But you can look at those things where it's like Wayne Bennett always beats Brian Smith. What is across different teams?
That's the thing. That line about, the coach isn't out there playing, I mean, by that logic, a coach should never be held accountable because no coach is ever out there playing. You have to hold the coach accountable at some point. Otherwise, why even have them?
Exactly.
If you're going to just say... If people are going to just say, the coach isn't out there playing, all right, well, don't have a coach then.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
it starts and ends with coaching, and in the middle is the players. So, like, Billy Slater's taken zero ownership of the failure of Queensland from Game 2 to Game 3 and losing the series. New South Wales did the unthinkable. You know, they were able to win in Queensland for, like I said, at the beginning, only the third time in 13 tries or 12 tries or whatever it is. And it's all the referee's fault.
Yeah, it might have been. Yeah, it might have been the third time in like 14 deciders in Brisbane. It's something
two
like
wins,
that.
11
I think
losses.
it was 2 from 13 before that game. So now it's 3 from 14. I'm pretty sure.
And so, you know, then you move on to Selwyn Cobbo.
Yes.
So he was picked in Game 1 on the bench. He was not picked in Game 2 because he had personal problems, but then he played. He wasn't ready to play, but then he played for the Broncos. And then it came out that Billy Slater and him have issues with each other. And Slater says, so he's picked in Game 3.
And Slater said it was fake news.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing about this is it was Danny Weidler from Channel 9 who reported that, and Slater also works at Channel 9, so that's an interesting little subplot to all of this. I'd imagine this has probably put a strain on Slater's relationship with Weidler there, and that'd be pretty awkward if they come into contact in their travels at Channel 9, which I'm sure they would at some point. I'm sure that they would.
I really wonder about that because he was picked for Game 3. Like, the news came out between Game 2 and Game 3. And then Billy Slater said it's fake news, and Selwyn Cobbo was picked for Game 3. And did Billy Slater choose to pick Selwyn Cobbo just to prove it's fake news? Because, like, they're even recalling Dane Gagai seemed to be a mistake in the end. I mean, all of this stuff could have proved a masterstroke.
But this is the thing, like, this is state of origin football. This is a pressure cooker. Even if it is fake news, we don't know if it's fake news or not. We're not sure, but even if it is fake news, these are the things you have to deal with as an Origin coach. Not everything's going to go your way over the course of a camp, over the course of a series. You have to be prepared to deal with this sort of stuff. Even if it is fake news, you've got to be able to let it wash off, water off a duck's back. I don't think that he seemed very agitated in the press conference before the game when that came out. And you felt like, I think Benny Elias was on the money when he said that Billy Slater really is rattled here.
Yeah.
He didn't handle... You have to... The media are always... You know, even if the media report fake news, that's always going to happen. You have to be able to deal with that. You have to... You're not going to get... The media aren't always going to love you. You're not going to get everything go your own way. That's just...
Unless you're Ricky Stewart.
Well, yeah, unless you're Ricky Stewart. But that's just par for the course.
So,
Billy Slater's paid a lot of money to coach Queensland. With that comes a lot of pressure and having to deal with this sort of stuff. And if it was an easy job, everyone would be doing it,
That's one of the things I saw, right? I saw a thing this morning, Brad Fittler talking a bit, Billy Slater. And Billy Slater was saying the reason he seemed rattled or whatever was because he hadn't read it and he just kept hearing this stuff in the press conferences when he was asked about it.
Do we really believe that?
No, of course not. Of course not. Like I said, why did he pick Selwyn Cobbo either way? Because that's his whole theme of the entire state of this 2024 State of Origin series. Like, the media is making bullcrap up and trying to destabilise them, and maybe they are. But Michael Maguire certainly, I think, had a big hand in rattling Billy Slater's cage, and it worked. I don't think nobody can say it didn't work. Billy Slater can say all he wants about, it was the referee's fault, and DC can say the same thing. But Michael Maguire's entire campaign worked. And, you know, you go all the way back to Game 1 when they had 13 on 12. And we talked about it before. New South Wales had all better stats. The only thing they couldn't do was score points. I think I said, one of the things I said was if you fed the stats into an AI machine, said who won this game without the score, it would spit out New South Wales won. And that kind of showed that without that 12th man, the one man down, New South Wales probably would have done a whitewash. And it all is the mind game. I think it's all the mind games off the field that did it. They rattled Queensland's cage. They made them overly emotional.
Glass houses.
We're still Queenslanders, mate. Yeah. Well, now we know how Queenslanders actually are. They can't handle having their hypocrisy pointed out. Because that's what the glass houses comment, which has been a recurring theme for the past 6 weeks, has been. They are hypocrites. Billy Slater is a hypocrite. He will always go down. The internet sentiment, fan sentiment has always been that he was a dirty player. He had a 7-week suspension or something, like a massive suspension one year, which doesn't happen very often, and he had it. They changed rules around him, and he wants to criticise New South Wales like going a bit hard. Gordon Tallis criticising Michael Maguire. Again, it was all pointing, and they just got so worked up about the fact that people were just pointing out the hypocrisy. Because everyone's response to all of the nonsense, finally, because I don't know why it hasn't been this response for years, was whenever a Queenslander said something about New South Wales, whether it was in the media or the players, someone would respond to them and go, yeah, but you did that too, right? Like, you do know that, right? Yeah. Like, Queensland is like that too, right? Yeah. Like, it's you're the same, right? You know that.
Yeah, there were just some really, you touched on it there, just some really examples of just childish behaviour from Queenslanders during this series. You touched on it before. Billy Slater asked a direct question in that press conference after Game 2, will you be making changes? And then he just said, we're still Queenslanders, didn't answer the question.
Yeah, what does that mean?
And then the reporter asked for a better explanation, and then he said, it means we're from Queensland. It's like, don't be a smart aleck. The reporter knows where you're from. He's asking you again because you didn't answer the question. And he that just really left a bad taste in my mouth. And then the Danny Weidler report came out. He called it fake news straight away. Appeared to be rattled by it. Appeared to be rattled by Michael Maguire's glasshouses comment, and then just blamed the referee after the decider to cap it all off, the icing on the cake, blaming the whole thing on the referee after a decider they played at home where they didn't even score a try for the game. Like, are you kidding me? Are these guys kidding me?
Kicked 2 penalty goals, right?
That was it. 2 tries to 0. They didn't score a try in the 80 minutes, and they saw fit to blame it on the referee after the game.
Yeah, it's I'm pumped for next year. That's the thing with Origin. I'm pumped for next year.
Yeah. Well, this is the thing. The thing. Some people say, the coach isn't out there making the tackles or whatever, but I think the coaching does matter. I think when Brad Fittler was the coach, Billy Slater out-coached him, won those 2 series. But this year, Michael Maguire out-coached Billy Slater, and New South Wales won the series. So no matter what people say, coaching at Origin level, it does matter. I think the better coach has won the series in the last 3 years.
I don't think it has to do with, in Clubland, the coach has a lot to do with it because they're with them week in, week out. In Origin, we talked about it before, the coach doesn't need to sit there and run plays and work on their fitness and things like that. He has to get them up for it. Half of coaching is getting them up for it. Especially at a rugby league kind of thing. But in all coaching, half of the coach is the mental thing. And if your coach is being rattled by the opposing team, it's going to filter down. Mm-hmm. He's not able to get him up because, again, they're going to look at him and go, man, he's like, Billy's off his game. And, he did out-coach Brad Fittler last year. Remember, it was last year, they had the worst Queensland team ever.
I think that might have been... that might have been 2020 when Dean Ritchie wrote an article saying this is the worst Queensland team. And,
Daly Cherry Evans, when they won, said from the worst Queensland team ever. And, what was the most famous one where Fatty Vorton outdid...
in 1995 when Queensland won 3-0.
Yeah, outdid... It was Phil Gould, yeah. Who was the...
I'm pretty sure Phil Gould was the coach that year, but I'm going to just double check that.
That's what the coaching does. It is all about the mind games. It is all about the off field. It is all about, in State of Origin, it is all about the news media. It is all about the quotes that you can do, glass houses and so on. And it is all about getting your team up. And man, you want to talk about the Queensland passion, right? Queensland's pick and stick, and they've been doing that for years, and now it has just been pointed out to them that is hypocrisy. You don't pick and stick. It's easy to pick and stick when you're winning, but from game 1, where they knew they were slightly behind, to game 2, they made changes that were everyone was like, "Why are you making those changes?" And game 2 to game 3, where they got smashed, they made a bunch of changes.
They were only picking and sticking when they were winning.
Yeah, absolutely.
They won 11 out of 12 series between 2006 and 2017. Having such a record over such a long period of time like that, of course you're going to pick and stick. Yeah. Of course you're going to stick with the same team. It's easy to reward success like that. It's when you're losing, that's when you make changes. That's just the way it is. If you win, you keep the same team. If you lose, you make changes. It's got nothing to do with Queensland being loyal to their players. No, they're loyal to winning.
Yeah, exactly.
Like everyone else is.
And that's the thing.
And that's life. That's everything. That's business. It's employees. You're loyal to whoever gets you results.
And so they've had that hypocrisy pointed out to them now, and they can't handle it. That's why the things with like the Selwyn Cobbo rift having to say fake news, because even though they won game 1, they didn't pick and stick, and that hypocrisy has been pointed out to them. You know, and I think it's just great. I love it because as I've mentioned it on this podcast so many times, I hate hypocrisy most of all. I hate it.
Just going back to that 1995 State of Origin series. So, Queensland did win a 3-0 whitewash coached by Paul Vaughton, and Phil Gould was the New South Wales coach.
It was that was the bunch of reserve graders beating us.
Yes, I think that was one glaring one where Queensland won, having a far inferior team. And 2020 was the other one.
And there was one where they had no wingers and they picked Adam Mogg out of left field, and everyone was like, "Who?" I remember the newspaper article then was like, "Who the hell is Adam Mogg?" And I believe he scored a try, and they won. But that's the thing, right? They can't handle. He got out coached. Slater got out coached. And, Queensland aren't going to fire him after losing one. I know everyone knows he wanted to be the next Mal Meninga and win like 50 in a row and stuff like that, but it's not happened. And as I said, I'm so pumped for next year. It's so annoying we have to wait next year to Origin. Let's just do it all again next week.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, Cherry Evans lost his head as captain as well, because Queensland were going to have the ball. Bradman Best knocked that ball on, and then he got in that scrap with Luai, and then New South Wales got the penalty. So that's just the captain losing his head in a pressure situation. That's not what you want in a big game like that. The captain's got to lead the way. The captain can't be giving away penalties when the opposition's just knocked the ball on.
So there's highlights of that, like the whole series actually. And I think in game 1 he got into Stephen Crichton after the grapple tackle, term I hadn't heard for however many years.
Yeah.
He got up and pushed Stephen Crichton in the face. In game 2, he elbowed someone in the head when they were on the ground. Like, is he? I think it's the same thing. They were able to rattle Daly Cherry Evans really, really well and get under his skin. Jerome Luai.
Well, Luai did it perfectly, didn't he?
Like, if you think Reid Marnie's good at it, man, Jerome Luai, he's the king. I think the fact that.
That's what you got to do. It's State of Origin football. You've got to do whatever it takes to put the star players on the opposing team off their game. Mm-hmm. Jerome Luai did it perfectly with Daly Cherry Evans on Wednesday night.
All night. It was so funny. And you got to. I love. There's a bunch of footage on the tries being scored of Andrew Johns versus the Cameron Smith, because they're in the commentary. Andrew Johns versus Cameron Smith reactions, and they're amazing. You want to talk about New South Wales and Queensland passion? It's great footage.
Yeah,
like good. How excited Joey gets versus how down Cameron Smith gets.
It's good. They're passionate. They care about the result, and that's what sport's all about.
And then after the game.
Yeah.
So Michael Maguire and Gordon Tallis finally confronted each other.
Yes.
After we've discussed at length the Gordon Tallis, and I believe Dan wrote an article about it.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, so I just actually pulled a couple of paragraphs out of my article. I thought I'd talk about it. So just to recap, to give people a bit of context here. So Tallis, before the decider on NRL 360, Tallis made personal attacks against Michael Maguire, said he had, quote, no personality, also felt the need to point out that Maguire never played Origin, and that was hypocritical, because Tallis also said at another time, well, when Maguire said that Billy Slater was in a glass house given his playing record. Tallis was saying, Maguire can't go back to Billy Slater's playing days. He's the coach now. Yet Tallis went back to Michael Maguire's playing days, saying that he never played State of Origin. On top of that, he couldn't help but have a dig at Maguire for being sacked from his NRL coaching jobs with South Sydney and the West Tigers in the past. So this is the context. That was what Tallis said about Maguire before the decider. Then, after the decider, because Maguire had won and Tallis had all this egg on his face afterwards, Tallis was trying to be all chummy with him and smiling and laughing with him because he knows that clearly Maguire had the last laugh over him in that battle.
Mm-hmm. And if you want to watch something, the most awkward television interview.
I'll tell you what, it was awkward. You could see it particularly on Tallis's face. Tallis was thinking, it was almost as if Tallis was sort of, his facial expression was saying, "Oh God, I hope this guy doesn't know everything I said about him last week."
I found it to be like the presidential debate with Trump and Biden at the, I don't know what he just said. Like that was how awkward it was. Where I was like, nobody knows what he just said. Like it was so.
Yeah, it was. You could see it, couldn't you?
You know when two people who hate each other are in a room and you can cut the tension with a knife?
Yeah.
I could cut the tension in my room.
Yeah, and then they weren't even in the same room. Maguire was on video link.
It was like the tension was being downloaded over the internet. It's so awkward to watch. And just said Gordon Tallis is trying to let's not talk about how stupid I am. Please, God, don't mention how stupid I've been.
It's like I think Tallis really didn't want it to be brought up.
Yeah.
I think Phil Rothfield might have brought it up and said, Rothfield said something like, it's good to see Gordy and Madge getting on so well here. And then Tallis's face went bright red in embarrassment.
But good on him, Madge Maguire. Seriously, it's so funny because you can tell like that was the thing, right? Gordon Tallis is so embarrassed, but Michael Maguire, you can see how hilarious he thought it was.
And I think Maguire said at the end, he said, "Oh, it's good to see you're sitting next to him, Buzz. You should get into him for me." And that sort of added another little awkward touch to the whole situation. But I mean. If Gordon Tallis was saying that he had no personality the week before, I'll tell you what, he wasn't saying that when he was talking to him via video link on that
that's
TV
the thing.
show.
Say it to him, bro. Say it to him. It's easy to say on the internet.
It's easier to say when it's 1-1 in the series than it is to say after New South Wales have won 2-1.
It's easy to say on the internet. Say it to his face.
Well, he didn't, did he?
Yeah, exactly.
He didn't.
And, meanwhile, moving on, Latrell Mitchell, who unfortunately missed out on Game 3 after having such a cracking Game 2 and being in phenomenal form, clearly Wayne Bennett's influence, but he's now injured and out. I think he's out for the rest of the season, right?
Look, I'm just going to look that up, the latest on that Latrell Mitchell injury.
Yeah, it's a massive blow to the Rabbitohs, Paul Rabbitohs. Stupid Raiders broke their streak this week and ruined my perfect tipping round, by the way.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just trying to dig up an update on that Latrell Mitchell injury. But yeah, he said he was watching on from home with Game 3, obviously out injured, and took to social media in the wake of that win by the Blues in the decider with a cheeky message of, and I quote, "New South Wales don't get Origin." He wrote that underneath a photo of Bradman Best celebrating a try. So, and a nice little cheeky dig in there from Latrell. And that's true, isn't it? Often people will say, "Oh, New South Wales don't get it." That's the thing. I think over the course of time, probably Queensland have probably had more passion towards the concept, but there's no doubt they were outplayed in this series. And
I think, we've our ambassadors Craig Gower and Mitchell Pearce. We've both talked to them about it, and it's easy to show passion when you're winning as well. I've been seeing a lot of footage of that. That Mitchell Pearce's redemption. The James Tedesco try in the final minute to win the Origin. And, when Pearcey was here, he was saying, after Queensland levelled it, they were underneath the goalposts, and Pearcey said to James Maloney, "We got to win, man. I might die if we don't." And then when James Tedesco scores that try, the excitement and it's one of those things that brings like goosebumps. Your hair stands up, tears come to your eye because Mitchell Pearce and James Maloney are so happy, and everyone's so happy for Pearcey.
Yeah.
And like I think that's they won. Like that's where the passion comes out more. It's really hard to be passionate without appearing bitter when you're losing. And like Tigers fans right now, you think Tigers fans aren't really like still into their club? I don't know if you saw the press conference with Benji Marshall this week, where a reporter asked him like,
was this after the game?
Yeah. So
I covered the game itself, but then I had to go on and cover the Broncos Knights game straight after, so I didn't actually get to watch the press conferences.
They played at Campbelltown, right? No. When was the one they played at Campbelltown? After their last Campbelltown game, I can't remember when it was.
I'll look that up for you as well.
But they mentioned that how the Tigers have lost like 10 in a row at Campbelltown or something like that.
Yeah, so that game against the Rabbitohs was in Gosford. Yeah. The last one they played at Campbelltown was in round 16. They beat the Raiders 48-24, but I think I remember the game you're talking about. There was a game at Campbelltown where... Yeah, well, they lost to the Broncos 34-10 in round 8 at Campbelltown.
That was the one. So the press conference after that one, yeah. So, the reporter asked whether they should abandon Campbelltown. And Benji Marshall got really angry, right? And he seemed bitter and, like, grumpy and, like, a bit of a knob or whatever. But he pointed out, even though they're losing, the fans still come. So why the hell would they abandon it? Because they win at Leichhardt, lose at Campbelltown was the implication the reporter was saying. And so Tigers fans are the same, right? I know some Tigers fans. Shout out to Adam, who got really upset about our last podcast. Don't worry, bro. Tigers will come good.
Oh, he got upset, did he?
Yeah, because we criticised the Tigers so heavily. Said they're worse.
We're just doing our job. We're here to call it as we see it. Tigers
fans are super passionate, but appear to be bitter as opposed to passionate because they're losing. When Tigers next year, if Tigers come good, there's going to be passion.
Yes.
And
look, I will give it to them. I'll tell you what, they are one of the most passionate supporter bases in the game. There's so many. I mean, I sort of live in that Canterbury, West Tigers is Ashfield. There's a West Leagues at Ashfield. So I live in that sort of Bulldogs, Tigers area. And there are so many Tigers supporters, and they're so passionate, even though their team's struggling so much. They love their team, and if their team were to start winning, as you just alluded to, they would be over the moon. They'd be on top of the world.
And that's what New South Wales versus Queensland passion really is. New South Wales was getting so dominated. You go back to 2005, right? No one ever talked about New South Wales passion. And then over the course of that period of time when Queensland was winning every series, they started to question New South Wales team, fans, everything passion, right? And excuse me, it was nonsense. It's just like everyone was upset instead of excited, and people confuse passion with excitement. Whereas you see how angry Tigers fans and defensive Tigers fans get, and a lot of people would look at it and say they don't have the passion for their club. They're just like bitter and twisted and angry and grumpy. But really that anger and that upsetness, the like we have to move on kind of thing is that's the passion. And that's what Queensland, New South Wales was really like for the past like 10 years, right? Everyone, you see in the wins how much passion that New South Welshmen have. And all you got to seriously go watch that James Tedesco try and see how excited everyone... James Tedesco, as he's falling over the line, the smile comes on his face, right? As he's falling, and he knows. And they did it for Pearcey, and they did it for New South Wales, and they did it for everything, and everyone was so happy. So, like I said, you look at the Tigers fans and you think they're angry and they're bitter and they're twisted. But passion people don't really think they're passionate because they have no excitement. They have no, honestly, a lot of them don't see anything in the future. We've just talked about it before. You can look at the Bulldogs and you can see growth. The crappy teams in the NRL, Bulldogs for the past few years, Bulldogs, Dragons, Tigers, Titans. you can see something in the Bulldogs. You can see something in the Dragons. You can see something kind of in the Titans. It's minute to minute with the Titans.
But I think you're seeing, between the Titans and the Tigers, you are seeing more out of the Titans.
Yeah, and that's seriously, it can be minute to minute. Like with the Titans, you see something, you go, oh my God, this is the worst team in the East.
Put it this way, you fast forward 2 or 3 years, you could see the Titans being a lot better in 2 or 3 years under Des. Can you see the Tigers being a lot better
not
in
at
2
this
or 3
point
years?
in time.
Not really.
And that's why people confuse passion, confuse the lack of passion. But Tigers fans turn out, and that was all during that period of Origin where everyone was saying New South Wales doesn't have passion. There was more New South Wales fans at New South Wales games than there were Queenslanders, and they were all sellouts. They turn out. The fans still turn out, and that gives you the passion. The fans give the players that passion.
Yeah, the 80,000 people who turn up to Accor Stadium for the Sydney game, they all care.
Yeah.
And this is the thing, all right, there might have been State of Origin series in the past where the Queensland players cared more and were more passionate than New South Wales, but not this year. Not this year.
100%.
Not this year. With this New South Wales team under coach Michael Maguire, you can't say that was the case this year.
One of the best quotes I saw was about Liam Martin. I don't know who said it, so sorry, but it was, if Liam Martin's mother was a Queenslander, he'd hate her.
That's a good line.
And that's what New South Wales showed. I think it's what they showed this year. I think it's more New South Wales was never lacking the passion, with back to Latrell Mitchell's sledge, and that's what he was kind of saying. New South Wales never lacked the passion. They just didn't show it because it's hard to show when you're getting pumped every single time. It's hard. All you can show is bitterness, depression, sadness. You can't show how happy you can be when they win. And this series has really shown, I think, nothing really changed in the way New South Wales and the players take Origin, believe in Origin, feel about Origin. What changed was how they show it, I think, more than anything. And they really showed. I love Liam Martin's big hits and stuff like that.
Yeah. You mentioned Latrell Mitchell before, just a quick injury update. So this is according to the casualty ward on NRL.com. He's got that foot injury and he's going to be out until round 23. That's according to NRL.com and the casualty ward. Usually they're pretty on the money, as you would expect.
Well, I think they have to be.
So we'll just see how that goes. Hopefully he gets back before the end of the season there.
Yeah, because the Rabbitohs are currently 12th. That is insane. The Rabbitohs are currently in 12th. Insane. Given they were 5 weeks ago.
Yeah, I mean, so 7 wins, 10 losses. So, they're heading in the right direction. I mean, it's still going to be very hard because, as I said, the teams who made the top 8 last year won 13 or more games. And of their 24. The teams that won 12 and lost 12 didn't make the 8.
Yeah.
So, and again, last year's ladder is important because it was the first year in a long time where we've had 17 teams. Before that, it was 16 teams for a long time. So, last year's ladder is an important guide to see how many games teams need to win to get into the 8 this year. And if we go by that guide, well, the Rabbitohs have got 7 games to go and they're going to have to win 6 of the 7 to get there. That's not going to be easy. But it's still possible. It's possible.
Highly unlikely.
It's highly unlikely, but it's possible.
Where they were 5 weeks ago is...
Yeah, they were a contender for the spoon.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they've certainly improved on that.
I think, just as an aside, I think Eels have going to win the spoon because Moses is out for the year now.
Yeah, well, it's probably going to be... Eels are on 14 competition points. The Tigers are on 12. The Tigers have still got one more bye. The Eels have had all their byes. So the Titans are third last on 18 points. That's a 4-point jump on the Eels. Yeah. So you'd think it's either going to the Eels or the Tigers this year. I
think it's going to come down to that last. You know what the last round game is? Eels versus Tigers. And you can't see them winning either of them winning any game.
Most likely that's going to be the.
Imagine it was a draw.
Well, then it'll be on. Well, I mean, if we give the Tigers the 2 points for their bye, they'd be on the same points as the Eels at the moment. So there's every chance that game will be the battle for.
Yeah, I think so.
Battle to avoid the wooden spoon.
So we can get to the biggest talking point in the Origin, which was Jerome Luai gets under Daly Cherry Evans' skin. Daly Cherry Evans sparks him up. Who was the the number 12 from Queensland is the third man in, which...
I've got it here in front of me. Number 12 was Jeremiah Nanai.
Yeah, so he was the third man in, knocked them off the field, which sparked basically an all-in. Cam Murray jumps off the New South Wales bench, runs in. And who was the other one? Olakau'atu, who wasn't even playing, ran in.
That's the thing. You may as well get involved if you're not playing. They can't send someone off who's not playing, right?
Yeah, it's so bad. And then Daly Cherry Evans had a big tanty and said Cam Murray should be sent off. So
this is the thing, right? I know he shouldn't have got involved from being on the bench. But, I mean, it spilled over onto the bench. So what's he supposed to do? It didn't
spill over onto the bench. He ran a good, 10 metres.
Yeah, okay. But
the person who got sent off, funnily enough, was Olakau'atu.
Well, Cameron Murray got sin bin from being on the bench, so they had to take another player off.
Yeah, that sucked. It was poor. Who was it? Barnett.
It was Barnett.
Had to get, he was like... Oh, man. But yeah, it was Olakau'atu, I'm pretty sure, got sent off the field, wasn't allowed to participate. And even at the end, Michael Maguire tried to get him to come out onto the field to celebrate. And he told Michael Maguire, I'm not allowed to, which is the funniest thing ever. So,
but I know Murray might have gone a bit of a distance to get involved. But, is he supposed to just stand there and not do anything?
Yeah, he is. Actually, everyone is supposed to stand there and not do anything. Nanai is supposed to stand there and not do anything. Everyone. That's the thing with it, right? The third man in rule is, if it had been on the field, okay, and Cam Murray had been on the field, and Nanai was third man in, and then Cam Murray joined it in a proper game of football and not Ashley Klein doing constant square ups and ruining the game, only Nanai would have been sin binned, because the rule is the third man in. It's not third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, up to 34th.
Well, it can't be. You can't send the whole team off.
But it's third man in, right? Team. So and I'm pretty sure the rule was made because of third man in thigh day. But the third man in is meant to be sin binned. Cam Murray got sin binned because he was on the bench, not because he was a third man in. Okay, let me take a step back there. Ashley Klein had to sin bin two players because that's what he seems to do. Because, that guy does...
Because he's too scared of sending one, because he's too worried about what the other team will say about him. So he figures, well, if I send two, then they won't blow up because it's a square up.
So, in reality, Nanai should have been sin binned. As I said, if it was on the field, Nanai sin bin, Cam Murray stays on, because he's just the fourth man in, and it's not a fourth man in rule. With Ashley Klein, both of them are going. However, if that was I think the best thing I have heard is that was a lower grade game, okay? Like a kid's game or something like that. Two things would have happened. Cam Murray would have been sent in a lower grade game because they have to set the example for kids game, and Olakau'atu would have copped a 12-month ban. That's actually the rules. Non-playing individual gets involved in play, and it's a 12-month ban.
Can I put something to you? So Cameron Murray didn't throw a punch, right?
No one threw a punch.
He got involved from the bench, but he didn't throw a punch, right? If somebody throws a punch on the field, they get an automatic sin bin under the rules, right?
Yeah.
So is it worse to get involved from the bench and not throw a punch than to throw a punch on the field? Because the penalty for throwing a punch on the field is a sin bin, right? So are we to say that he should have been sent off for getting involved from the bench, but he didn't throw a punch? So what I'm saying is I would think that it's worse to throw a punch on the field than it is to not get involved but not throw a punch from the bench. So that's my counter-argument to people like Daly Cherry Evans saying, well, he should have been sent off. Yeah, but if you're on the field and you throw a punch, it's only a sin bin. Well, he did get involved from the bench, but he didn't throw a punch.
Daly Cherry Evans really only wanted to send off because that's the only way they can win.
Yeah, that's what I touched on earlier.
But, I'm happy that Cam Murray wasn't sent, and it would have ruined the game if he had been sent. Should he have been sent? I don't know, because it's not actually comparable. That's what I'm saying. It's not comparable to Nanai. Nanai being the third man in is a sin bin. That's the requirement. He's the third man in. He's not allowed to be the third man in. If you are the third man in, it's a sin bin. Someone coming off the bench, I don't even know if there's a rule for it, but I know in the lower grades you get sent. It's a rule requirement in kids, like not even lower grades like Premier League, but like amateur kids football or whatever, if the bench jumps in. But then I saw another great comment actually on Reddit where, what if Luai and Cherry Evans were knocked into Cam Murray, like he hadn't have had to run, by Nanai, and then Cam Murray got off and like separated them, because then he's getting involved. So what people are really, or Daly Cherry Evans is really judging on, is the fact that Cam Murray ran to it, right? And again, like it's all conjecture and what if. There's no right answer, actually, I think, because I don't know if there's a rule for it. If there's a rule for it, then you have the right answer. Daly Cherry Evans only wanted the send-off because he knew that would put his team on top. He can't sit down in front of me and like honestly say to me that, it was a fair send-off because of that. He 100%, not even like 1% of his mind was going, what is fair is this, okay? 100% of his mind is going, he should be sent off because we want to win, right? Nanai should have gone, sin bin. But like I said, Olakau'atu, he, like in a kids game, is a 12-month ban. That's the worst thing. They're concentrating on Cam Murray because he was playing. But I'm pretty sure it was Olakau'atu, right? Yeah, like Olakau'atu wasn't playing and he got involved, right? He's in a suit there getting involved in the game. And although it is like off the field and argy-bargy and stuff, it's still part of the game. But I think
that is worse. At least Murray was on the bench, but at least he was playing in the game.
Like, I don't want to see Olakau'atu banned for 12 months, but it's really bad what he did, actually. Really, really bad. Imagine, just imagine, in a club game, you always have injured players or players not playing, and there's like the guy sitting there at the Bulldogs game, just say it's Bulldogs versus Dragons, so we can make it as biased as possible. There's a bit of argy-bargy between Ben Hunt and Jerome Luai, and it spills off onto the field.
Oh, you mean like Matt Burton or someone?
Yeah. Jerome Luai plays for he plays for the Panthers. Yeah, Matt Burton, right? Bit of argy-bargy between Ben Hunt and Matt Burton. They fall off the field, and one of the Dragons players, who's in a suit, jumps up and gets involved. It doesn't matter whether it's kids. Doesn't matter if it's NRL. It doesn't matter if it's state of origin. People who aren't playing have no right to get involved. Yeah.
And don't get me wrong. Olakau'atu is a lot worse than Cam Murray in my view.
So you should.
My defence of Cam Murray is only that it's two things. One, it's not as if he ran from the bench onto the field to get involved. I mean, the fight spilled over the sideline. That's the first point. The second point I have to defend him is, well, he didn't throw a punch, and if you're on the field and you throw a punch, you only get 10 in the bin. So, he's off the field. Yeah, that's worse than being on the field, but he didn't throw a punch. So my argument would be, well, if you're on the bench and you get involved, well, that's a sin bin. Just like if you threw a punch on the field, it's a sin bin. That's the thing. If Cam Murray had thrown a punch from being off the field, well, I'd argue, well, that's a send off. If he'd thrown a punch, but he didn't throw a punch.
Yeah, I don't think he should have been sent off. No. But I don't know like I said, I don't know if there's a rule for it. And I think everyone's concentration on Cam Murray is because DCE was like having that big whinge, and Billy Slater even mentioned it as well. And Queenslanders have really been blaming it for their loss of the game. Like, that is why they lost. But people should stop concentrating on Cam Murray and concentrate on Olakau'atu. Now, I don't know what the result of was there charges laid? I think Cam Murray been banned 3 games.
I've got it here. So 10 players were charged with misconduct during the game. Funny. 9 players were charged over the melee. Murray and Olakau'atu got 2 game bans.
Yeah, so Olakau'atu, as I said, what Olakau'atu did was way worse. Why did he get the same punishment as Cam Murray?
Yeah, that's not right.
I think he should have got I'm not because it's him or anything. I reckon he's a great player, but I just think that is a terrible, terrible thing for someone to do at the highest level, arguably the highest level, even higher than internationals. At the highest level, the most watched rugby league game. What kind of message does that send to people in the lower grades? Not, like I said, not just Premier League, but kids grades, right? Parents, other kids, older brothers, whatever. I'm just defending my brother, whatever. You're not in the game. You don't have any right to get involved in anything.
Yeah, so can I put something to you? So Spencer Lenny got 8 weeks for what he said to Ezra Mam in Las Vegas. 8 weeks?
Yeah.
Olakau'atu gets involved in a fight not even being a player in the game and gets 2 weeks.
No, I would have given him 6 to 8. I thought he would get 6 to 8.
And I'm not saying Lenny shouldn't have got 8 weeks. Yeah. But what I'm saying is if you put those two together, something's not right there.
Exactly. And that's what I mean. Everyone's concentrating on the wrong thing. Everyone's concentrating on... And then there's all those like memes and jokes and stuff about Ola Kawatu not being allowed on the field, and Michael Maguire was laughing about it. But everybody should be looking at that and going, that is the worst possible thing to ever happen. Seriously, in an argy-bargy. A guy who is not playing jumps in. Yeah, he didn't throw punches, but he jumped in, and what he could have sparked, the response to that, right, because that's how it works, right? You have two guys having a bit of handbags at 10 paces, as they call it, because you're not allowed to punch. Queenslander jumps in, so New South Wales jumps in, right? Players, people who are in the game. Then a guy in a suit from New South Wales jumps in. That could provoke all the guys in suits from Queensland to jump in, which will then provoke all the rest of the New South Wales guys in suits to jump in. That's so bad. It is so bad, and I don't understand why people don't think it's so bad.
Yeah, well, my attitude is if Spencer Lenny got 8 weeks for that racist comment he made to Ezra Mam, then Ola Kawatu should have got 8 weeks as well.
I really think so. Like, nothing against Ola Kawatu.
No. It's just
that behaviour.
Players who are not in... Like, this is completely different to Cam Murray. Cam Murray's a part of the game. He's all right, he wasn't on the field, but he was on the bench. He was part of the game, and the fight spilled over onto the bench. Ola Kawatu's not part of the game. He's not playing. He's not in there. I mean, I can't say 17 now. I have to say 18 because we got this extra concussion sub. So he's not even part of. He's not even in the 18. Ola Kawatu. So he's no part in the game. I'll tell you what though, whether people want to admit it or not, it's that the fans love that mellow.
Oh yeah, 100%.
They loved it. It added an unpredictability to the ticket price. It took us back to the 90s when we'd go to school and think, I can't wait to get home and watch the Origin game tonight. We know that there's going to be a fight. This was a throwback to the 90s, and I'll tell you what, the fans loved it.
Yeah, and that's why I bring back the biff. And like it would have been great to see Luai and Daly Cherry Evans throw down. It would have reminded us of things like Benji Marshall and Mitchell Pearce going at it in 2010. You know, two little guys with a giant Jeremiah and I hitting Jerome Luai in the back. Third man in thigh day. Yes. And so then, that's like I think the summary is like neither of us think that Cam Murray really should have been sent off. But really, I think that we agree that the Ola Kawatu situation is much worse, and people should be really concentrating on that. But it was awesome. That was the thing. It was awesome. I was out of my seat. Like everyone was asleep in my house. I was out of my seat. Like, get him!
Everyone loved it.
Yeah, it was so great.
It felt like. I'll tell you what, that game felt more like a State of Origin game than any other State of Origin game in at least the last 10 years.
Since Paul Gallen punched Nate Myers.
Yeah, and that was probably maybe 10 or 11 years ago. Yeah.
That's it. That's the first State of Origin. Honestly, so the first one with the Suoli'i hit had that's just a bad hit. The second one had good back and forth in defence, like a good rugby league game. But third one felt like Origin. It was awesome. And so the NRL is going to review the State of Origin schedule. The TV deal, this all comes down to the TV deal. So this is part of it, right? So I think we talked about it last week. The Bears might be the one that's sort of coming in.
I think they're looking at a partnership with the Western Australian Rugby League. They want to come in as the Perth Bears, I think, in season 2027.
2027. And then apparently, from what I've read in some messages I got and confirmed a little bit on the internet, but hard to find, the plan is to have 20 teams by 2029.
And that'll get them 10 games a week and increase the value of the TV.
And so they're already starting to negotiate the TV deal, even though it doesn't expire till the end of 2026.
I'll look that up for you. Current NRL.
So the team comes in 2027. I can't remember anyway, but
So the Perth Bears are supposedly going to come in 2027.
Yeah, and so the TV deal expires 2026, and they're starting it now. Based on 20 teams, and then also I believe it was 14 NRLW teams.
Actually, I'll tell you what is weird, and this is weird to me. The NRL TV deal actually expires in 2027, it says here. So it's $2 billion, $400 million a year between 2023 and 2027. But that is odd. You're right about that. That's odd because they want to bring in the Perth Bears in 2027. I'm not sure how that works because they've already got a TV deal until 2027.
They're starting the renegotiation to redo
So that's weird. I can't work that out. They're
redoing the whole thing. That's why they got to start it now. So they're redoing the whole thing. So they're
going to redo 2027? I didn't know you could redo that. Anyway,
you can really do anything with a contract if both parties agree. You can.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a covenant, is it? Yeah. It's only there to sort of
whatever you want to do, as long as both parties agree, right? So they get. But so from what I understand, it's Perth Bears. And then the PNG team, and they've worked out the whole way that players can go there and stuff like that, and it'll be tax free for players who go there as well.
Yeah. And so if they want 20 teams, then who would the other team be then?
It's a toss up between another Queensland team and a New Zealand team. Whoever pitches best.
Okay, I'd be inclined to go for a second New Zealand team. I think.
Yeah, me too.
Because I think the Dolphins need. I don't think we can quickly add another. We need to give the Dolphins a chance to find their feet. I'd leave it Queensland as is for a while. Yeah, I'd be looking at the second New Zealand team.
I think adding, if the Dolphins are obviously going better than the Titans, and we'll see what Wayne Bennett does to the.
Yeah. But the Queensland clubs should just get a chance to breathe as is.
Speaking of Wayne Bennett, I found out for the Jason Rolls has already left Melbourne. And started working.
So Trent Barrett is not going to be at Parramatta.
He's sucking everybody, and I think it's fair. He's trying to come in and can fix the whole entire thing. But one of the agreements for release is he can't take anyone from Melbourne for 12 months, which I think Cam Serrato had with the Panthers as well. And so that means that, I doubt anyone would go from Melbourne to follow Jason Riles over staying with Craig Bellamy. But that's the kind of thing that every club should put into their contracts, I think, for all coaches, so that coaches can't do the Wayne Bennett.
It's a good idea, isn't it? It's a good idea from the Storm's point of view to go, well, no, we're not just going to release you without any caveats here. I mean, if we're going to do the good thing and release you here, well, you can't take any of our players.
But if I was a club, I'd put it on all the coaches. If I was clubs, I'd put it on all the coaches because of the Wayne Bennett, and I would call it the Wayne Bennett clause in my contracts as well. Because back to that extra Queensland team, if Wayne Bennett destroys the Dolphins like everybody now expects him to. You're going to have two terrible Queensland teams, Titans and the Dolphins. And so, adding another Queensland team.
Yeah, I mean, the Dolphins have only come in last year. I think we need to give them a chance to find their feet.
I think 10 years would be good.
Yeah, give them a chance. Don't go adding another Queensland team in the next, 5 to 10 years. Yeah. I'd give those Queensland teams a chance to find their feet. Just back on this State of Origin scheduling, we've talked about it before. So there's 6 weeks between Game 1 and Game 3, but the Origin period really starts a week and a half before Game 1 because that's when the teams for Game 1 are first named. So that stretches the period out to 7.5 weeks. Plus, you probably got to add a couple of weeks on the end of it for players to sort of find their feet again and sort of, come back down to earth after the Origin series. I don't think it's a case of, Game 3's done, we'll just switch back into club mode. Yeah. Takes them a couple of weeks. So if you put it all together, that's a 10-week hit on the NRL season. I don't like it. We've said before, I think they need to shut the competition down halfway through. 3 straight Sunday nights, play the Origin series, put other test matches around it, put women's Origin around it. You can put other games around it.
City Country. Bring back City Country.
Get it done. The only thing with that is you could do it for the non-Origin.
Yeah, absolutely.
So play the next tier.
North Queensland versus South Queensland for the next tier.
Yeah, City versus Country for the players not involved in Origin.
North New Zealand Island versus South New Zealand Island.
Yeah, you can do a lot of things. So get that done in your 3 weeks and then resume the season after that. Or do it at the end of the season in October, sleepy October, where Rugby League would have the sporting market to itself with nothing else happening in October. But this, it just annoys me. It's a 10-week hit on the season. It feels to me as a fan, I don't know if you agree, but it just feels like you're not getting full value out of the NRL season. It feels like you get 10 weeks and then the NRL just goes on the back burner for 10 weeks, and then now finally we get our NRL season back. I feel like as a fan, I'm being robbed of a third of the NRL season with the Origin scheduling the way it is at the moment.
There's 3 periods of the NRL, and you can see it in the ladder, right? There's pre-Origin, where it's really, really hard to tip, this year especially. There's during Origin, which is 10 weeks, where it becomes really, really hard to tip because you don't know what players are going to back up. You don't know what players are going to do this. You don't know what teams are going to be like. And even, the Roosters got pumped by Melbourne on the weekend, which we're going to talk about in a minute. But even my response in one of my chats was like, yeah, but it's a few days after Origin. You know, like you don't actually know if that's the Storm or the
you
or the
can't
Roosters.
read anything into that. That's what I mean about it takes a couple of weeks to... You know what I mean? It's not just a case of, Game 3's done, Origin's over now. No, they've got to back up that week. And then it takes a couple more weeks to sort of get grounded and find their feet again.
Because the Roosters suck against the top teams for some unknown reason, right? And that's coming off the stats of like they got smashed by the Panthers and they got smashed. According to my Roosters friends, they got smashed by the Storm on the weekend. But my response to that is like you don't actually know because we're still in Origin. There were players backing up. We're still in the Origin period, even though the State of Origin 3 is over. It's next week, which is the third part of the season, really, where you start. You only start to see what it is. Yeah. And then the following week after Origin, where you know. And I went back and looked, I've done it before. I looked at my tips for all of my tipping competitions tips from last year and the year before. Post-Origin, which is around 2 weeks after, or 1.5 weeks after the completion of Origin, everyone's tips become the same and every tip becomes predictable. Beginning of the year, really hard to pick because you don't know what teams are going to go like bonkers, like the Rabbitohs. The Rabbitohs beginning of the year. Origin, you don't know what the hell you're doing because you don't know what players are doing what and who's ready for what and who's actually playing, who's going to get injured. And then post-Origin, it all becomes super easy. Yeah. So it's that's exactly what you're saying. Origin period takes away from the NRL, and you can see it there. You have 3 periods: pre-Origin, Origin, and post-Origin. Because Origin is so dominant on the
thing. So why not be able to have both? Yeah, I mean, if you shut it down halfway through, played the 3 games, and then resume, you could have the best of both worlds. You'd still have your Origin series, and you'd have the full NRL season, not this, a third cut out of it by Origin, the way it is at the moment. Or, as I said, do it at the end of the season in October. Give that a go.
I don't want to do the end of the season in October because I know, I think we talked about it before, because of that 4-week period of 8 teams, 9 teams.
The final, 9 teams not in the finals. I guess that... I mean, it's the same thing with the Kangaroos squads, though, isn't it? Yeah. You could just put players into a train-on squad. But that having been said, all right, if you don't want it at the end of the season, well, let's just do the
that's the main reason. If they did a bottom team playoff thingy just for the fun of it, which apparently they've done before, I think the prize was a Singer sewing machine or something like that in the 80s. Like, if they did that to keep... But even then, because... The erratic nature of the match fitness, I think, would detract from the quality of the game because you would have some teams that haven't played for 4 or 5 weeks, and there'd have to be a break after the premiership. So you'd have some players who haven't played for 5 weeks, who have gone and had holidays, unless you put them in a train-on squad, which then, you've got 4 or 5 players from each team in this train-on squad while everyone else is having Mad Mondays. Then you got some players haven't played for 3 weeks, some haven't played for 2, some haven't played for 1, It will detract. The first game will be such a terror. It'll be like the first round of the season. It's not good, not that good, and it takes a while to get going. So middle of the season, I think, is absolutely the best. If they did do it at the end of the season, I still think it'd be better than what we have now.
Yeah, it would be. I definitely think, shut it down halfway through, play them on 3 straight Sunday nights, put those other games around it, as we said, and then resume, go to the second half of the season. This the other thing I was going to say on this is... I don't think it's fair that clubs lose players to Origin representation. I mean, clubs are paying these players huge salaries to play for them, not to play for New South Wales or Queensland. I don't like this argument that during Origin it gives the bottom teams a chance to win a few games. Nonsense. That's not fair on the top teams. Yeah. That's not a way to, that's an unfair way of helping the bottom clubs. The bottom clubs should have to earn their wins over the top teams. They should have to earn their success against the top teams. They shouldn't have their success handed to them by the top teams having their best players pulled out of State of Origin.
I completely agree. I hate it so much. And as a Dragons fan, I'm just checking. It was 2008. 2008, round 10, Dragons were playing the Storm. And the Storm were like, there was some ridiculous amount where they had like debutants. This is round 10 in the NRL season. They had like 7 players on debut or something. And the Dragons carved them up 36-12. Right? Carved them up. And Melbourne got really offended by Jamie Soward's over-the-top celebrations, and then Melbourne went out and smashed the Dragons. Like hardcore. And that in 2008, it was the Storm finished on top and Dragons got into the 8. And it was seriously on the back of the Origin period the Dragons got into 8 by beating teams like the Storm. You know, like it was you kind of ruined the 8 because of that. And that's really what it does.
It's not the way to. That's not the way to even up a competition, to pull players out of the top teams and make it easier for the bottom sides while State of Origin's on.
I think you'd find
they should have to earn their success.
I think you'd find if someone did a full study of it and went and looked at those teams that go into the finals and then bow out with a whimper. I would hazard a guess that a lot of them are those teams that have scraped into the finals thanks to the Origin period and don't really deserve to be there.
Yeah.
You know,
like the Raiders last year.
Yeah, and the year before, and the year before, and the year before. The Raiders didn't win much during Origin period this year.
I just feel like the media just ignores the NRL for 10 weeks as well. You know, that's another part of it. It's just the media just overlooks the NRL season for 10 weeks. So as a fan, I feel robbed by that.
Yeah, I think
there's a better way.
They really need to fix it. I wish they would. So we can go deep onto the Roosters' terrible record against the best teams because they did get pumped by the Storm.
Yes.
I didn't watch. I actually couldn't watch any football over the weekend. I was quite sad.
They lost 24-8 to the Storm. Mm-hmm. So here's some numbers for you. Since 2020, the Roosters have a 1 from 20 record against the Panthers and the Storm. Since 2020, 1 from 20 record against the Panthers and the Storm. Quite extraordinary to me. This season, the Roosters are 1 from 8 against top 8 teams. Their only win coming against the Bulldogs. So the Roosters are 11 wins and 7 losses this season. They're coming 4th. So if they're 1 from 8 against top 8 teams, well, that says to me that obviously they've had a very easy draw this season.
They did have an easy draw.
Yes.
That's why the Sharks are sitting above them as well, though. And that's like, what do they call it? The luck of the draw. I think we've got to see the Roosters do something in the last 7 weeks. 7 weeks? 6 weeks.
Oh, there's 7. Oh, so we got there are 7 rounds to go. Yes, 7 rounds to go.
Oh, god damn it! Oh yeah, there we go. So they've got the Sea Eagles this week, which is a top 8 team. They're 5th. The Dolphins, which is a top 8 team. Then they got a bye. Then they've got the Eels, which, you know, by all rights they should smash. They got the Titans, by all rights they should smash. The Raiders, by all rights they should smash. And the Rabbitohs to close out the season, maybe missing Latrell Mitchell.
I'll tell you what, we know why the Sea Eagles are 5th, because Tom Trbojevic is back and he's firing. Yeah. That's the only reason. I'll tell you what, Tom Trbojevic should get a commission of Anthony Seibold's contract, because he's the only reason why Seibold's still got a job. And I know we talked about the coach matters, but come on, in this case, Manly's fortunes always go with Tom Trbojevic being fit and firing. If he's fit and firing, they're 5th, they're up, they're thereabouts. If he's not, if he's out of the team, they drop way out of the top 8. Well,
they were out of the 8. Where was it? They were out of the 8. He came back last week. They were out of the 8.
He has been back for a few weeks. I covered the game that he came back in. I'm just going to look up when that was.
They were out of the 8 3 weeks ago.
So Tom Trbojevic came back in that 1 point win they had over the Cowboys. And that was the weekend before the Origin team was going to be picked, and there was a lot of people.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
People were looking at him, going, "Oh, well, could he be picked? Could he be picked?" And look, to be fair, he was a bit flat in that game. They got the win, But since then, he's just come on in leaps and bounds. Had a great game in that 44-6 win over Newcastle and another great game in that 38-8 win over the Titans. So he's just gotten better and better, and Manly have shot up the ladder, coming fifth.
Moved from 11th to 5th. 11th to 5th.
Well, there you go. It's no coincidence, right? Sorry, getting back to the Roosters. Sorry.
Yeah, so the Roosters are going to have to play. That's the only, in theory... okay, so where were we? Roosters, the Roosters. They got to play, the Seagulls this round and the Dolphins next round. So what happens there is really going to decide their position. They can stay in fourth based on beating those two teams. Like this week is going to be the end of the Origin period, and then you really understand it. I don't think people can read too much into the Storm loss last week, 3 days ago, but you can when you take into account the fact that they've had all of that terrible results against all of those top teams like the Panthers. They do have an easy draw, and but when you look at their easy draw, the teams they've played have been teams that are also not meant to be easy for a lot of it. So, they open the season Broncos, who are meant to be good. They're meant to be the top team, and they're in a lot of trouble against the Sea Eagles. Then the Rabbitohs, who are meant to be top of the ladder, and then the Panthers, who are the Panthers. And then the Bulldogs when the Bulldogs were on their run. And then the Knights, then the Storm, and then the Dragons is really their first actual, meant to be a bad match, again, against the Broncos. At the beginning of the year, when we were analysing the draws, I believe they were in the, middle of the ladder for the difficulty of draw. But then when you break it down in
That's
reality...
the thing, at the start of the year, you don't know who's going to be good. Yeah. Well, you've got an idea, but you don't know for sure who's going to be a good side and who's not. It's only now, at this stage of the year, where we can go, well... They've only won 1 of 8 against top 8 teams that we know will... And yet they're still fourth on the ladder, having only won 1 of 8 against top 8 teams. So we know that they've had an easy draw.
But that's also the kind of thing where it's the current top 8, because they've beat the Dragons, who were in the 8 at some point. They beat the Broncos, who were in the 8 at some point. They beat the Warriors, who haven't been in the 8. They beat the Raiders, who were in the 8 at some point during the year. They beat the Cowboys, haven't been. Eels haven't been. They beat the Bulldogs, who are still in the 8, and that's the one that they've got. Because the Bulldogs can't win away from home.
They've got a problem. When we will get to the Bulldogs in a second.
And they beat the Dragons again, who have been in the top 8 this year. So it's a little bit weird. So you don't really know. They have to correct the ship this week, because their next 2 games are top 8 teams. Actually. Yeah,
and look, if we look a bit further back with the Roosters, so they last won the premiership in 2019. So in 2020 they lost. This is a star-studded roster, one of the best rosters in the game. They always have one of the best rosters in the game. 2020 they lost in week 2 of the finals. 2021 they got thrashed in week 2 of the finals by Manly. 2020, sorry, I think I just said that was in 2021. Yeah. 2022 they got thrashed in week 1 of the finals by Souths and were eliminated. In 2023 they lost in week 2 of the finals.
Only scraping through to week 2 as well.
Yes, so this is a star-studded roster. They always have everything go their way. Whenever they lose a player, they always sign someone better. Because players want to go there because they know that they got more opportunities after football at that club because of the business connections that club has. Look at Chad Townsend. Yes. Yeah. Chad Townsend is going there to play reserve grade because he wants to get into the media after football. This is a clear example of the advantage they have over other clubs. They've always got a star-studded side, so it's not as easy as just saying, oh, well, they make the 8 each year, so that's good. Well, no, not for them. They've got to perform really well every year because of the advantages they have over other clubs.
Yeah, and that's why the next 2 rounds, when they play the Sea Eagles and the Dolphins, those 2 teams are established full top 8 sides that have been in the top 8 most of the year. Well, Sea Eagles in and out, but they are now an established top 8 side with Tom Trbojevic there. And then their last 4 games are all easy. Well, easy, they're soft games, easier games, teams that aren't in the top 8. So they need to establish those cojones now in the next 2 weeks to show they can beat proper top 8 sides. So like I said, they demolished the Dragons. Dragons demolished them. Dragons have been in and out of the top 8 all year. They beat the Raiders, who were in the top 8 for most of the year. The Broncos, who were meant to be in the top 8. And have been in the top 8. So they've beat a bunch of teams that have been in the top 8 for the year, but they haven't really beat any teams that are established, definitive top 8 teams, like the Sea Eagles now, Seagulls lose Tom Trbojevic, they're back out. They're back out. But they're Tom Trbojevic full. The Trbojevic full Eagles are a top 8 team, and the Dolphins have been in the top 8 the whole year, basically.
Maybe Manly should save themselves some money and make Tom Trbojevic the captain coach, and then they wouldn't need to have a coach.
Because they don't even need to coach; they just need to put him in.
They just need Tom Trbojevic fit.
Yeah, they just need him to play. Yeah. So I think it's a really good idea to revisit the Roosters in 2 weeks when they have the bye and see if they've won these last 2 games.
Yes.
Because I don't think next 2 games. If they don't, I think if they win the next 2 games, they're going to have the same kind of thing. They're going to whimper out of the finals. They will hit the top 4 because they have 4 easy games to close out the season. Raiders, Rabbitohs, whatever the bugger they were.
The real test for them will come in the final series. Yeah. We'll see how they go when the whips are cracking.
They better win the next
on.
2 weeks. Moving on to the Bulldogs. Bulldogs are a chance to miss the 8.
Yes,
they are. The big talking
are.
point among Bulldogs fans.
That's the thing, that they're walking a tightrope. They're 9 wins and 8 losses. They are still in 6th spot despite that loss to the Cowboys, that 20-18 loss. But, I mean, to give you an idea of how much of a tightrope it is, the Dragons are not in the top 8, but they've had the same win-loss record of the Bulldogs. The Bulldogs are only 6th, and the Dragons are only 9th because of differential, no other reason. And the Bulldogs are only 2 points ahead of the Raiders, who are 10th. And the Bulldogs have had all their buys. So this is not a foregone conclusion. They're 9 wins and 8 losses. As we say, they need to get to 13 wins to make the 8. They're going to have to win 4 of their last 7 games now, and that's never going to be easy.
No.
So I didn't like, and again, I'm a Bulldogs supporter, as you know, but I didn't like how Cameron Ciraldo, the coach, cherry-picked this Jeremiah Nanai appearing to disrupt Bulldogs winger Blake Wilson. And that one went unsanctioned, and he wasn't happy about that. I don't like how he cherry-picked on that because they lost the game for other reasons. If Hayward had have scored that try and not bounced the ball, they would have won the game. If Matt Burton had a kick properly and kicked those 2 conversions that he missed, they would have won the game. They would have won if Reed Marnie hadn't have missed that tackle on Tom Dearden, which led to that last try that the Cowboys scored to win the game. So there were 3 other examples where if the Bulldogs had have done better, they would have won. So I don't like how Ciraldo wanted to pick apart the referee's performance after the game when I just gave you 3 examples of how they had fate in their own hands and they lost the game.
Yeah, look, historically, going all the way back to 2009, the Bulldogs do have history of cherry-picking one thing to decide their fate, like when they whined about the Jamie Soured Milkman for 10 years. When in that same season, that was the year they got docked 2 points for having 18 men on the field. They did have the easiest game in the last round of that season was the Dragons versus the Eels, and the Eels were on a tear and they ended up like resting Nathan Hindmarsh or whatever and losing. And across town, all the Bulldogs had to do was beat the Tigers, who were at the bottom of the ladder, and they ended up losing.
I mean, look,
it is kind of a Bulldogs cultural thing.
Look at Ricky Stewart. He does it every week.
Oh, no, Ricky Stewart doesn't do that, man. You got to be very clear. Ricky Stewart doesn't pick one thing and blame.
Actually, no. Ricky Stewart blames everything on the referee. Yeah.
Ricky Stewart blames everything on even when he wins.
So does Billy Slater.
Remember when he won and Ricky Stewart complained about the referees? Yeah. That was this year, so it's not really the same. The Bulldogs have a cultural thing where they do it, and I think Cameron Ciraldo is not the kind of guy to actually believe what he's saying in this case. I think he was trying to take the flack away from the players who, as you said, missed those 3 things. Now, I'm in a couple of closed Bulldogs fan Facebook groups. I'm in a couple of everybody like I'm a secret spy in a bunch because as I monitor internet sentiment a lot over media statements, right? And in every one of those closed Bulldogs Facebook groups I'm in, they are all saying the same thing, right? None of them are blaming the players. And, we talked about it a few weeks ago where some Bulldogs fans may have abused some Bulldogs players so much they had to shut down their social media temporarily. And I think it is like that's what Cam Ciraldo is doing, taking blame off the players so that kind of stuff doesn't happen. I agree with you. I don't like it when coaches do it, as long as they're not but the extreme is the Ricky Stewart. I want to see Cam Ciraldo when he can take ownership of a loss. which I haven't seen this year, and say that was our fault.
This is the thing. Well, they won 2 golden point games in a row against the Sharks and the Warriors going into that game. So this is the problem. When you run it so close every week, at some point, things are not going to fall your way and you're going to lose. And that's what happened against the Cowboys. They ran it close again. You're not going to win in golden point every week. At some point, things are not going to go your way if you keep running it close. And that's what happened. They lost to the Cowboys, and now they're under pressure. They could miss the top 8.
And so when you go back through their year and you look at their wins, right, they just scraped through against the Roosters in round 5. To
be fair, they have had a lot of close losses.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. So they opened the round looking like a wooden spoon team. They opened the
first 2 games, they were terrible.
Then they pumped the Titans. It doesn't count. Right, then they lost by 4 points to the Rabbitohs. They won by 4 points against the Roosters. They lost by 2 points against the Bulldogs. Pumped the Knights. They only won by 6 points against the Tigers, but then they lost by 6 points against the Panthers. They lost by 4 against the Raiders. Pumped the Dragons. Pumped the Knights. Only just scraped through against the Eels by 4 points. Got pumped by the Roosters. 1 point against the Sharks, 1 point against the Warriors, lost by 2. So it's no surprise, to be honest, that they lost that game so close. They are skirting everything right now. The ladder, their games, everything right now, close to the line. And that's an issue they need to fix across the board. They need to... I think it comes down to that lack of halfback. You know, they need to definitively put them away. We can go back to Origin and the Andrew Nostradamus Johns saying this is where Mitchell Moses needs to do something. This is where Mitchell Moses needs to finish the game. This is where you want he said the halfback to do something, and Moses steps and scores to try and puts the game to bed. And that's what the Bulldogs right now aren't able to do.
And this is the thing, it's all about how they're going with the ball. They're the number 2 defensive team behind Penrith this year, so there's no problem in the defensive area. It's just that with the ball, they're still lacking that little bit of polish in attack, and that's why they're 6th and not really up there with the with the best sides in the top 4.
They don't have a halfback halfback clutch player who can go, all right, I'm going to tear the opposition apart and put them to bed. They've done it a couple of times in the year, as I just said, against the Knights, against the Dragons, smashing the Dragons is no big thing this year because the Dragons either win or get smashed. So that doesn't count. But even against some of the low-ranked teams like the Tigers, they only scrape through by 1 try.
To give you an idea of their attack, of the teams currently in the top 8, they've got the worst attack. Yeah. So there you go. That explains it.
Steve, as I said, I think Serrato is just trying to take attention from the players. Yeah. But that's what he's got to go back and fix. He's got to go back and they've got to find that player that can just actually really put the game to bed and start winning by 2 tries. Yeah. Winning by more than 1 try scoring play, right, is what you really want to be doing.
Yeah, if you're getting in a scrap where the margin's less than 6 points every week, you're not going to win in golden point every week. You have a couple of weeks where you do, but then inevitably you're going to have another week where the cards don't fall your way.
Doesn't matter who you are. If you're playing Daly Cherry Evans in golden point, Daly Cherry Evans is going to win. That's one of the things about Daly Cherry Evans that I heard earlier.
That's the thing. You can only get lucky so many times.
He is since the advent of Golden Point, the inclusion of Golden Point. Daly Cherry Evans has won more games. Daly Cherry Evans teams have won more Golden Point teams than something like the next 4 combined. Yeah. So the Bulldogs can't run that line, man. And like I said, I think Cameron Serrato is just taking the attention off the players, and he's probably aware, and they've got to go fix it. But the only way to fix it is to sign a halfback.
Yeah, and just look, I know their defence is a lot better, and they're much improved on last year. We got to point that out. But I just think maybe they are. Is it fair to say they're a tad overrated this year, the Bulldogs? A little bit overrated, maybe. I'll put it this way. I heard a couple of Bulldogs fans who are friends of mine say, if they make the grand final, I want to make sure I've got the night off work. To be honest, I don't think they're going to have that problem this year.
Well, there's that old joke, if we lose, we riot. If we win, we riot, for Bulldogs fans, right? And everyone's fully relying on that every 10 years.
Yeah. I don't think Bulldogs fans have to worry about getting in the queue for grand final. As much as I hate to say it, and I hope I'm wrong, I don't think they're going to have to be queuing up at Ticketek for grand final tickets this year.
Yeah, they really over relying on that every 10-year thing where the Bulldogs win one.
Yeah,
that's just superstition.
That is
coincidence.
Yeah.
Okay, so
I wouldn't be. Look. That 4 wins out of the last 7. Yeah, they could do it. Could they make the 8? They could, but they're not going to be there on grand final day.
And what everyone has to remember is Cameron Ciraldo this year has fixed things on the fly, and this is one thing he hasn't been able to fix.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. You're not gonna fix everything in one go, and he has fixed the defence. They had the worst defence in the league last year. Now they've got the second best defence in the league. So he's made a lot of progress in that area, but he hasn't in the attack. They're the worst attacking team in the top 8.
Well, shout out to Gracie Hamada, Smeaton Grange, Rob Whittaker's gym, where the Bulldogs and the Panthers now do their wrestling.
Oh, okay. Well, so you run into them.
No, I don't go there, but I'm always planning to visit. But that's where they do their wrestling. Okay. Both of those teams, coincidentally, and if every Sydney NRL team needs to be getting onto those guys.
That's a good endorsement for that gym, then.
Robert Whittaker, Gracie Hamada, Smeaton Grange, bunch of great guys. I've seen them at competitions, BJJ competitions all the time. Yes. But that's where both teams do their wrestling and look at the defensive records of both those teams. So every other club should be reaching out to Gracie Hamada.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be doing that. Yeah, for sure.
First thing. So I never really believed Phil Gould was going to get fined. I always thought he would use his clout and his voice and his media personality to get out of the fine for his rant earlier this year where he called the NRL stupid, and that's what's happened. Mm-hmm. He said he was going to appeal it he did, and win he did.
And I heard Gordon Tallis said on NRL 360, look, he views Gould as a media personality, not a Bulldogs general manager. That's a flawed argument. He's a club official. He's an employed club official.
Doesn't matter.
There have to be restrictions over what employed club officials can say about the NRL publicly.
Does that mean Aaron Woods, who is currently, I believe, contracted to the Sea Eagles, can say whatever he wants because he's a commentator?
Yeah, his history as a media personality has nothing to do with it.
I think Mitchell Pearce, our ambassador, is he works at the Roosters. I mean, he also works for Triple M and on Fox Sports. Can he say whatever he wants then?
If there were no restrictions on club officials, there'd just be a free-for-all and they'd be bagging the NRL at every opportunity. You can't have that from employed club officials. He can't have it both ways. If he wants no restrictions, well, don't work for the Bulldogs. Just be a media pundit and then you can say whatever you want. But you can't have it both ways.
Next year when Chad Townsend is in the media, is he allowed to say whatever he wants because his main job is going to be in the media and he's only going to be playing reserve grade for the Roosters? Is he allowed to say whatever he wants? Yeah, thanks to Gordon Tallis, I mean, like, based on what Gordon Tallis says, he is.
Yeah.
Because you see, if his main job is the media, Aaron Woods' main job is the media, how many games has he played this year? I don't even know if he's played.
I'm not sure off the top of my head. But,
I doubt he's even played this year. I can search for him. Let's see. Aaron Woods. I think I don't even know what team he plays for. I think he's at
That's
Manly.
the thing. No one's forcing Phil Gould to work at the Bulldogs. He's chosen to, and so therefore he should be treated as any other club official would in this situation.
Maybe he's not contracted this year anymore, but he was definitely doing it at the beginning of the year.
Phil Gould's options should be either continue to be employed as a club official and be restricted in the same way that every other club official is restricted, or stand down as a club official and then you can say whatever you want, but you can't have it both ways. So it's almost like Gordon Tallis's argument is, because Phil Gould's been doing it for a lot longer in the media and he's high profile and I view him this way, well then he should get special treatment. That's his argument.
Yeah, so Aaron Woods is currently contracted to the Sea Eagles apparently and has played 0 games in 2024. So he's now a media personality. He can say whatever he wants because he commentates for Triple M, I think.
Yeah, he's around, and I think. Yeah, I actually think now that what they're doing is now that Matty Johns I think he's going or has gone to Paris for the Olympics. they're actually going to run that James Graham's podcast as a show on Fox League, and Aaron Woods is doing that with him as well.
Yeah, so he's allowed to say whatever he wants, according to Gordon Tallis. But actually, in reality, you're not.
No.
Okay, like, it's just the ridiculousness of it.
Yeah, it's a condition of your employment as either a club official or a contracted player with a club.
Yeah, anyone who is involved with any club isn't allowed to talk, has to follow the same rules, except for Phil Gould, apparently.
We can't have a rule for one. We can't have one set of rules for one person and a different set of rules for everybody else.
But his voice is so big, I'm sure the NRL's just scared.
Oh yeah, they've just caved into him, which is predictable. The NRL just rolling over.
What I got to highlight is this is a
Bulldogs
Bulldogs fan saying this.
But I sort of think I've got to be fair.
Yeah.
I can't just be biased in favour of my own club. If Cameron Ciraldo's bagging the referee when he shouldn't be bagging the referee and should be looking at other instances where his players could have done better, well, I'm going to call it out. If Phil Gould, the general manager, is escaping a fine for commenting publicly when he shouldn't, well, I'm going to call it out too.
Yeah, I think it's bad. And it's again like, I know the NRL is not a legal entity, but do they accept precedent? Because now everyone should just say whatever they want.
Yeah.
And then say, but Phil Gould didn't get fined.
Say what Phil Gould said, and he didn't get
exactly
fined.
right. Say exactly what he said.
Yeah, say the game. Aaron Woods should say the game's stupid.
Yep.
And he won't get fined because Phil Gould didn't.
Yeah. If I was any player, just for the hell of it, if I was any guy in that situation, I would do it. that's why I'd get sacked. But that's the thing. Like, I would just be like, I would repeat verbatim what he said. I was, at the end of my show, I just want to address something. Our game is really stupid. We have a stupid game. And we'll see what happens. Now...
Yeah, we don't have to spend too much time on this, but just an interesting statistic for you. So, of every season since 2015... this season, clubs have used more goal kickers than ever, than over that time period. We've had 61 goal kickers over 17 teams, and that's 3.59 per team. That's the most number of goal kickers in any season used by all the clubs up to this point since 2015. So that's through 19 rounds. That's not factoring in the latest round 20. But still, that's an interesting point. Teams having to go through a lot more goal kickers.
Yeah,
this season.
It is, and goal kicking wins games.
Yeah, well, I mentioned before Matt Burton missing those two conversions in that Bulldogs.
You know what would have happened?
That cost them the game.
They would have won.
They would have. Well, 4 points. They
lost by 2.
And we've talked about this has put their top 8 aspirations under a cloud. So this could be the difference between them making the 8 and not making it.
You know, there was that game, the Manly Melbourne grand final where Manly broke the record and had the highest points or whatever.
40-0, 2008.
But the year before Melbourne won, beat them by 1 million. But Cameron Smith missed like 8 out of 9 goals. I remember clearly he did like prayer to heaven for the last one.
And that's the thing, in the 2012 grand final when Melbourne beat the Bulldogs 14-4, he missed a lot of goals as well. If he kicked all his goals, it would have been a much more comprehensive margin.
So goals win game, and it is a crisis. There are some great goal kickers still, but we're not seeing. There was a run where it was like, they were all bloody Bulldogs.
Yeah, well, we had the 2 best goal kickers of all time in Hazem El Masri, and Daryl Halligan and Hazem El Masri, and then Jonathan Thurston after the other.
And Jonathan Thurston, who was a Bulldog who went to North Queensland. Also, Bulldogs claim his goal kicking. But you used to have these guys like that, like Andrew Johns, Jason Taylor, even like lesser ones like Aaron Gorrell was a really good goal kicker for the Dragons. Mark Riddell, Jamie Soward. I'm just naming Dragons now, but there was a lot of goal kickers. Yeah, and now
Cameron Smith. Yeah,
it seems they like the goal used to be over 80%, and now it seems they're content with over 70%. And it is like it doesn't matter so much if both teams don't have a goal kicker.
But I'll tell you what, if Daryl Halligan or Hazem El Masri were playing now, they'd attract big money because there was a guaranteed 4 points turns into 6.
If we went back and looked at all those Bulldogs ones that they just missed out on, I wonder how many had missed goals. It's like, So it is a big thing. Like, it's an interesting thing. Like, people should really hire goal kicking coaches. That's it for Rugby League for the week. Well done, New South Wales, on winning the Origin.
Yes.
Who says New South Wales doesn't have passion. This week, the Olympics starts.
Yes.
So pumped for breakdancing.
Yeah. So Saturday morning, the opening ceremony, and I think a couple of events even kick off before the opening ceremony.
I did write an update yesterday, I think it was, around everything you need to know Aussie edition for the Olympics, where it is that, it's some of the game matches, some of the things are before because of the timing and stuff.
Yeah.
I am really pumped for the breakdancing, like legitimately. I want to see.
Yeah. It's going to be. I think curiosity will get the better of me, and I'll have to watch that and see how it goes.
You can start watching Australia very quickly as well. They open up some things. Everyone is there almost. Everyone has arrived. Olympics is always fun. I'll watch the judo, the wrestling, and the breakdancing this year. And the shooting. I love the shooting.
Yeah, and look, obviously, we're going to be looking to the pool for the majority of our gold medals. Of course, Ariadne Titmus, Kaylee McKeon, and Cameron McAvoy as well, and Jess Fox as well in the canoe slalom. We'll be looking at her as well. But anyway, this is so Grace Note. They are data specialists. They've done projections.
Grace Note basically own all of the sporting data in the world.
Okay, well, there you go. They've done a projection on where the medals are going to go for this Olympics. They think Australia are going to win 48 Olympic medals. So that's interesting. Grace Note, coincidentally, they were spot on in predicting Australia would come sixth in 2021, and they were spot on in 2021. And they think we're going to move up to fifth place in 2024. So, yeah, they think Australia will win 48 Olympic medals. They're predicting 13 gold, 22 silver, and 13 bronze for Australia.
Yeah, so the other thing is, Alex heard this morning, Alex de Minaur has confirmed he'll play in the Olympics.
Okay.
Which is cool.
Yep.
So the breaking / break dancing will be on, most importantly, where is it? We'll be on in the middle of the night. We have.
Wish Ash Barty was still playing. That'll be a gold medal for us.
We have two people in the breakdancing: Rachel Ray Gunn, and Jeff J Attack Dune will compete in dance battles. So it does actually start tomorrow, by the way, at 11:30 p.m. with the Australia's Rugby Sevens taking on Samoa, and then they play Kenya 4.5 hours later. So the timing is a bit crappy because it's in Paris. So all of the thing is in the middle of the night. I'll just watch replays. And
I think we might have to there.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's predicted to be Australia's best Olympic medal tally in 2 decades. If they can get those 48 medals. We'll see how we go there.
So we'll keep you updated throughout the next... Yeah. How many weeks is it? So
it's a little over 2 weeks. I think it's 2 weeks and 2 days. Yeah.
We'll keep you updated for the next couple on where we are. Social media blower-uppers.
Yes.
Hi Vic, said yes... After our last episode's discussion around the Immortals, yes, it is too early for Cameron Smith to be the next Immortal, but I have no problem with him being inducted into the Hall of Fame for referees.
Yeah, that's a good line, Vic.
That's great.
Thanks to that.
That's so great. And then the General said, I thought they watered the Immortals down by inducting Mal. To be fair, I didn't watch him play, but can't shake that feeling. I think he was inducted in that
he was in that 2018 bunch of Immortals that were inducted. As I said on the last podcast, Rugby League Week were in charge of the concept until they folded, and they'd only named 8 Immortals up to that point, including Andrew Johns.
Yep.
But then at that point, when it was handed over to the NRL to take charge of it, the NRL thought, well, now that we're in charge, we're going to add another 5. And Mal Meninga was in that bunch, and that just sent it from 8 up to 13 in one hit. And this is the problem, because they've added so many now, the more they add, the less significant the honour it becomes. And we mentioned on the last podcast, we just felt as though it was just a bit much going from 8 to 13 in one hit. Should have just backed in Rugby League week and left it at 8, I would have thought.
Now, I think one of the big issues as well around that 2018 with Mal Meninga, exactly what the General was talking about, like, he retired well before Andrew Johns.
Yeah, so did the other players that were named at that time. Andrew Johns is the most recently retired of the Immortals, and he retired in 2007. Yeah. So that's why it made no sense for the NRL to, in 2018, then go and add 5 players who retired well before Andrew Johns.
If they were Immortal level, they would have already been Immortals.
Yes, and they weren't.
Too bad. That was it. So it was all broken. Completely agree with you, General. And I love Vic's comment. And then Michael Smith commented about one of our discussions around the Bulldogs. Phil Gould was at Penrith for 8 years, and it seemed to work out okay. I wouldn't be complaining. It's been 3 already. That's nothing for a complete rebuild.
I'm just not sure what he's saying.
Because we were talking about how Phil Gould. It was at the beginning of the year. We were talking about how Phil Gould has been at the Bulldogs for 3 years now, and this year should be a make or break year for him.
Yeah. All right. So we said that before this season.
Yeah.
I mean, so we got to put it in that context.
Yeah.
We didn't know that they were going to improve this season. Well, we said that before this season.
I don't think it changes that was really a make or break season for Phil Gould specifically.
And that's the thing. Well, they haven't even qualified for the top 8 yet. So let's just see how they go.
This discussion was more about if they ended up fighting out the wooden spoon again, then you'd have to say, well, whatever he's doing is not.
Well, they've certainly improved. We've got to give them that. 100%. They're in a better position now.
Was he at the Panthers
than they were at the end of last year?
Was he at the Panthers for 8 years?
It was something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think he started there in about 2011.
Yeah, 2011
and he probably left in like 2018, 2019, something
2019,
like that.
Yeah. And so you can just go back. I don't know if we've done this before. So 2011. So he took over in 2011.
I think so, yeah. You might have it there.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, I looked it up. Okay. So, and then Panthers missed the 8 in 2011. And then he sacked everyone. Whoa, that was weird. Man, the NRL thing is so bad. In 2012, they almost got the wooden spoon. And so in his third year, they got 10th. They improved. They saw improvement. And that's what we were saying.
Yeah.
And actually, 10th was the kind of, at the beginning of the year, the benchmark. We were like, they need to be around that, 9th, 10th, 11th type spot. And so at the Panthers, he did it. He actually did that, In 3 years, he got them to the 10th spot. And I think, and then in the 4th year, they were in the finals. Okay, so I think you can kind of say what we were saying was right. This was the 3rd year. We already have history. I mean, we didn't look it up at the time, but I think that's where the implication comes from. History shows 3rd year is really the big important one where you have to see that improvement. It takes 3 years to clean out a club. It took him 3 years to clean it out completely. From top to bottom, like staff, players, coaching, everything. Yeah. Got it there, and then this was the year we expected the Bulldogs have to do well. Anything less than 10th would be like a make or break for... well, not 10th, but around that 10th area.
You wanted to see noticeable improvement. Yeah. To be fair, we have, but they're not in the top 8 yet.
Yeah, they could miss it.
They may not make it.
That's it for the week. Well done against New South Wales. I was so happy. Tears came to my eyes when Bradman Best scored that try. And then when Mitchell Moses cut that line, I was just like, that's the best and greatest thing ever. Don't forget to follow SmartB app on all social medias and watch our social medias for our trivia for the week to win 2 tickets to any regular season game of your choosing. So
pretty good prize.
I can't remember who the winner was. Matthew Clark was the winner last week, and he's going to watch...
Did you say it was an AFL game? I think
anything? No, the AFL was the week before. I think this was I can't remember anyway. No, there's a new winner to be named this week as well. So, people have won AFL, NRL. I've had some people message me and say, "Can I go to things like Subversion?" And I said, sure, no problem with that. If they won, they didn't win. And also somebody asked if they can get UFC tickets, but those things are well over the budget. It's limit to $100. Okay. Right. UFC tickets are ridiculously expensive every time now, and basically unwatchable. So that's it for the week. We are trying to organise Gowie to come in and break down State of Origin as well, so we'll keep you updated on social media about that.
Awesome. Thanks, John.
Have a good week, mate.
See you next time.
Bye, everybody, and bye, Producer Chairs.